Edmund II, commonly known as Edmund Ironside, was one of the final Anglo-Saxon kings of England. His reign, which lasted only a few months in 1016, is one of the most dramatic episodes in the history of England. Edmund's short and often overlooked reign is marked by fierce resistance to the Viking invasion and the rule of Canute the Great, the Danish king who would eventually conquer England. Edmund's legacy, though brief, is one of defiance, courage, and a symbol of the Anglo-Saxon resistance in the face of overwhelming odds. Edmund's resistance to Danish rule highlights a significant turning point in English history, one that would lead to the eventual integration of Danish and Anglo-Saxon elements within the English monarchy. Edmund Ironside was born around 989, the son of King Ethelred II, the Unready, and his wife, Queen Emma of Normandy. Edmund's father, Ethelred, had faced a turbulent reign marked by constant Viking intrusions and internal political instability. Despite his efforts to defend England against the Viking threat, Ethelred's rule had been characterized by failure, particularly his ineffective responses to Viking raids and his heavy reliance on paying Danegeld, tribute, to Viking invaders. Edmund's mother, Emma, was a daughter of the Duke of Normandy, and her marriage to Ethelred had strategic significance as it linked the Anglo-Saxon royal family with the powerful Norman dynasty. This connection would later play a role in Edmund's life, as his mother would go on to marry Canute the Great after the death of her first husband, further entangling the English royal family with Viking rulers. When Edmund was a young man, England was in the midst of a prolonged conflict with Viking forces, particularly the Danish King Sweyn Forkbeard, and later his son, Canute the Great. By the time of Edmund's ascension to the throne in 1016, his father Ethelred had already been forced into exile, and much of England had fallen under Danish control. Edmund's own claim to the throne was contested, as Canute, the Danish king, also laid claim to the English throne after the death of Ethelred. Edmund Ironside's early life was shaped by the constant Viking threat. In 1013, after years of Viking raids, King Sweyn Forkbeard of Denmark successfully invaded England and briefly took control of the kingdom. Ethelred fled to Normandy in 1013, leaving England under Viking control. However, Sweyn's rule was short-lived, and after his death in 1014, Ethelred was able to return to England and reclaim the throne. Edmund's father's return to power was a bittersweet victory, as Ethelred's reign was now beset by political and military difficulties. His hold on the throne was tenuous at best, and the country was still racked by Viking invasions. In 1016, Ethelred died, and Edmund succeeded him as King of England. However, the kingdom was far from unified, and Edmund faced immediate challenges to his authority. The most significant of these challenges came from Canute the Great, Sweyn Forkbeard's son, who also laid claim to the English throne. Upon Ethelred's death, the Anglo-Saxon nobility supported Edmund as the rightful King of England. Edmund, who had grown up in the shadow of his father's failures, was determined to resist the Viking encroachment on England. The battle for the throne was to be a fierce and bloody one, with Canute's forces clashing with those loyal to Edmund. The conflict was a direct continuation of the struggles that had marked Ethelred's reign, with a foreign Viking dynasty seeking to subdue the Anglo-Saxon kingdom. Canute's army was formidable, bolstered by the experience of the Danish forces and their strategic alliances with various factions within England. Despite his bravery, Edmund was faced with significant military challenges. The forces of Canute invaded England in full force, capturing large swaths of territory, including London, where Edmund had strong support. The conflict came to a head in 1016, when the two kings engaged in a series of battles for control of the kingdom. The pivotal confrontation occurred at the Battle of Ashington on October 18, 1016. The battle was a decisive engagement, where Edmund Ironside's forces were defeated by Cnut's army. The precise details of the battle remain uncertain, but it is clear that Cnut's superior military tactics and the loyalty of his Danish forces led to victory. Despite the defeat, Edmund's resistance was not over. The battle at Ashington demonstrated Edmund's resilience and ability to fight against overwhelming odds. Following the Battle of Ashington, Edmund and Cnut the Great entered into negotiations to settle the ongoing conflict. The Treaty of 1016, which followed the defeat of Edmund's forces, is often seen as a testament to Edmund's determination and leadership. The treaty allowed Edmund and Cnut to share the Kingdom of England, with Cnut taking control of the northern and eastern parts of the kingdom, while Edmund was granted control of Wessex and the southern regions. The treaty was a temporary measure, as it did not resolve the underlying tensions between the two rulers. Edmund's control of the southern part of England was seen as a symbolic victory, as it allowed him to maintain a foothold in the kingdom and continue his resistance against the Danes. However, the reality was that the kingdom was now divided, with Cnut in control of the larger portion and Edmund's influence severely limited. The Treaty of 1016, however, was short-lived. Edmund's reign as king was cut tragically short when he died on November 30th, 1016. The cause of his death remains unclear, but it is widely believed that he was murdered, possibly by Cnut's supporters who sought to eliminate any rival claimants to the throne. Edmund's death marked the end of his brief reign and the final stage of the struggle for the English crown. With Edmund's death, Cnut was able to consolidate his power and eventually became the undisputed king of all England. Though his reign was short-lived, Edmund's legacy is one of courage, resistance, and an enduring symbol of Anglo-Saxon defiance in the face of Viking conquest. Edmund's fierce resistance to the Danish forces, particularly his leadership during the battles of 1016, has made him a historical figure of significance. His efforts to maintain Anglo-Saxon control over England, though ultimately unsuccessful, represent the last stand of an independent Anglo-Saxon monarchy before the establishment of Danish rule. Edmund's legacy was further cemented by his connection to the wider Anglo-Saxon tradition. His father, Ethelred II, may have been viewed by many as an ineffective ruler, but Edmund's more vigorous opposition to the Vikings allowed him to be remembered as a figure who represented the last hopes for an independent England. His death, while tragic, marked the end of an era and the beginning of the Viking Age in England under Cnut the Great, who would go on to rule both England and Denmark, laying the foundation for the North Sea Empire. The brief reign of Edmund also served to highlight the complex and often shifting alliances of early medieval England. The struggle between the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings was not just a military conflict, but also a political and dynastic battle that involved shifting loyalties, betrayals, and strategic marriages. Edmund's legacy as a warrior king who fought bravely for his kingdom has been celebrated in both historical and literary accounts. Moreover, Edmund's death had significant ramifications for his family. His sons, who were eventually taken to safety in Hungary after his death, would later return to England to reclaim their heritage. The most notable of these sons, Edward the Exile, would be the father of Edgar the Aetheling, who would briefly claim the throne of England in the 11th century, following the death of Cnut's son, Harthacnut. King Edmund II may have reigned for only a few months, but his resistance to the Danish conquest of England makes him an enduring figure in English history. His leadership, bravery, and determination to protect the Anglo-Saxon kingdom from foreign invaders serve as a testament to the resilience of the English people during a period of immense upheaval. Though Edmund's death in 1016 marked the end of the Anglo-Saxon resistance to Viking rule, his brief reign should not be seen as a failure, but rather as the last defiant stand of a kingdom on the brink of profound transformation. With Cnut the Great's victory, England would eventually come under Danish control. But Edmund's legacy as a symbol of defiance against overwhelming odds would continue to resonate in the hearts of the Anglo-Saxon people for generations to come.